Recovery doesn't start tomorrow. Recovery starts right now. Here to help, it's Rated R for Recovery.
Good evening, everybody, and welcome to Rated R for Recovery. We're broadcasting live from Studio Cafe and Coffee Company here on Del Prado Boulevard in Cape Coral, and we're so happy to have you. Give yourselves a nice round of applause just for showing up.
Thank you very much.
Rated R for Recovery can be heard on YouTube, Facebook, iTunes, and thanks to Captain Brian at Captain Brian's Off the Hook Comedy Club, podcastcafelive.com. We want to thank our sponsors, which we have many, too many to mention, but you'll be hearing them in the first break. Rated R for Recovery deals with everything recovery related, whether it be the addict and alcoholic themselves, the treatment center, or the interesting guest that may be world famous that has recovered from a seemingly hopeless state of mind and body. Real quickly, I'm an alcoholic that doesn't drink, I'm a drug addict that doesn't use, and I'm a dead man that walks amongst the living, and that is by no righteous deed of my own, and my name is Fletch.
Hey, Fletch. And I'm just a girl who couldn't say no. My name's Joy.
Hi, Joy.
Hi.
Today we have a very special series that we're starting on Grace United Methodist Church and what they do in the recovery-related field.
Very
Grace
exciting.
United... Go ahead.
I just said very exciting. Keep going.
It is very exciting.
Yeah.
Grace Church has 4 campuses, one in Cape Coral, Florida, and we do say Florida because we're heard around the world, believe it or not. We are podcasted around the globe. There is one in North Fort Myers, Florida. There is one in downtown Fort Myers, and there is one in East Fort Myers. And we and we are blessed to have the lead pastors from all campuses here with us today. Our first guest, my goodness, sir. That's what I have to say. You were born in Puerto Rico, and at 4 months old, you moved to the United States. At 17, you turned your life over to a power greater than yourselves, and that power is, sir?
Jesus Christ.
Okay. Yeah, okay. All right. Applaud the higher power because that's the only thing we're going to have left when push comes to shove. Okay. Now, from 1992 to 1996, I guess, you served as one of the pastors, or you served as one of the pastors at Christ Church United Methodist in Fort Lauderdale. Is that correct?
That is correct.
From 88 to 92 as the associate pastor at First United Methodist Church in Kissimmee, Florida. Is that true?
Right next to Disney World.
Okay. 84 to 88 as minister of youth and children at Trinity Hill United Methodist Church in Lexington, Kentucky.
Home of the Kentucky Wildcats.
In 1984, you graduated from Asbury College and you received a bachelor's degree in majoring in...
Biblical studies.
Go figure. Okay. All right. I could go on and on and on. You're an author of one book and a co-author of another. Would you let us know who you are?
My name is Jorge Acevedo.
Hey,
And welcome.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Thank you.
You are not only one of the pastors at Grace Church. I like how you say one of the pastors when you introduce yourself, rather. But you have come to be a person of confidence for me and the pastor at my church.
Thank you.
And I am grateful for that.
Thank you.
Tell us a little bit about what you were like as a youngster.
Well, I grew up, my dad was in the Air Force. That's how he got off the island of Puerto Rico. And I grew up traveling on air bases until I was about 12. My dad was a functional alcoholic. I've still never figured out what functional alcoholic means, but he was. Myself got lost in a lifestyle of drugs and alcohol from about the age of 11, 12 until I was in my late teens.
Okay, and real quickly, how did that affect you in your home life?
Well, it was kind of normal. It was our normal. It was our family normal. My dad encouraged drinking, and so and a various host of other kinds of activities in my life, and so it was just it was our family normal.
And so you're going this family normal, and one day you come home and say,
yeah, well, my family normal was not normal because
Right.
there comes a cost with this disease that we have called alcoholism, and I over a period of about a year, I came to discover that that my life was hopeless, And I gave my life to Christ in my parents' living room in 1978.
And do you, right now, were they there? Were they?
No. They were watching TV or something. And
how did you tell them?
how did I tell my parents that I'd become a follower of Jesus? I just told them that night. I told them that I'd become a follower of Jesus, and then me and my friends went out and got high to celebrate that I was a Christian.
And justifiably so, I guess.
Yeah.
All right. And so where did it go from there?
For the next couple of years, I just kind of struggled. It was,
Trying to be functional.
Trying to be functional. Yeah, it was because I landed in a church culture that their answer to addictions was to pray. And I believe in prayer, but that wasn't going to fix the disease of my life. And so it was, it was 2 weeks of sobriety followed by 2 months of drunkenness and lots of time at the altar on Sunday crying, saying, how come I can't get better? How come I can't get better?
So you were actually stuck in a rut that you couldn't stop because 17, 18 years old, that's what we do, generally.
Yeah, I mean, there was no way out, and I had no influences in my life that understood anything about the nature of the disease of alcoholism, and anybody that understood anything other than good. There were good folks that just told me, if you would just pray enough,
why can't you
just
stop?
don't do that.
And just don't do that, just be a good boy. And but it didn't help.
Or like many of us have experienced, why don't you just stop?
Why don't you just stop? Yeah.
Yeah, and I should say that some people can. There are people who, with
Yeah.
sufficient, what's the word I want?
Force.
Oh, yeah, can stop. Those
Yeah, they have
people
the
can stop,
constitution,
and they
yeah.
have no problem. Good for them.
And
Yeah.
there's a book that was written in about 1939 that talks about the different varieties of addiction or alcoholism, that some people are the casual drinker and user, and some people are the heavy drinker and user, that the wife comes home one day and says, if you don't stop, I'm leaving you, and that's enough. They put it down. But then I'm the chronic variety. I'm the one that ran absolutely amok and hurt everybody I love and everybody that I come in contact with, whether it be physically, emotionally, in whatever way.
Yeah.
So now, you, George Acevedo, are how old when you got clean and sober?
Well, the last time I drank was in seminary, but don't tell my seminary professor because I signed a little piece of paper that said I would never drink.
Was it the wine?
Was that?
Was it the wine?
No, it was a little more than wine.
Okay,
so
just checking,
yeah.
just checking.
No, it was about 30 years ago was the last time I drank. But I was white knuckling my sobriety. I kind of had this. I had enough of God inside of me that I had this kind of moral center that said don't drink. But the problem was that I was a dry drunk. I was raging on I had gotten married my high school sweetheart.
Yeah.
I was raging on her. I was raging on my child. I was raging on my fellow students, and my life was there was no real peace in my life. Now, I mean, I was a Christian, and I was even a pastor at this point. One of our pastors, Wes, I was his youth pastor.
I know that.
During all of this time, and it was his dad that first began to introduce me to. That sounded like a starship. That was
Yeah,
kinda
well,
cool.
we are having technical difficulties,
Technical difficulties,
which is the norm. But go ahead.
So, but it was Wes's dad that said, "You either go to counseling or I'm going to fire you." And so I started going to see a counselor, and as only the prevenient grace of God would allow, he was a guy. I found out later, a sex addict in recovery, and for the next 3 years or so, he walked me through the 12 steps of Alcoholics Anonymous. Except I was paying $100 a session.
Sorry.
And I could have gotten it free in the rooms,
Right.
But I'm glad I did. I'm glad I ate a lot of macaroni and cheese with the hot dog cut up in it on Saturdays. But those 3 years of therapy, my last 3 years of seminary, began to open a portal and an understanding about the steps of Alcoholics Anonymous, and I began that journey then.
And your family benefited from it. You weren't that raging guy anymore.
Increasingly less.
Okay.
Increasingly less.
And as time goes by and we practice the principles that go along with each step, that rage becomes less and less.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. No doubt.
And in steps 10, 11, and 12, if you subscribe to that way of doing a sobriety, the journey of sobriety, that 11th step is the one that just keeps us in contact with whatever power that we need to be in contact with so that we can handle ourselves on a daily basis.
And the interesting piece was that the only thing that, again, my first church told me about was that 11th step. It was the first 10 that they skipped.
Right.
And so by the time I started
Absolutely.
doing that 11th step
Yeah.
stuff, it was good. We were cooking with gas by
Yeah,
that time.
absolutely. And that's probably the experience of a lot of us. What's yours on Joy on that?
Mine was when I finished step 5, when I had made a list of my defects and shared that with someone else and found out why, not only why I did the things I did, but that only God could take away my addiction, my alcoholism, that I had to have God and I had to have people in my life. And after I did the 5th step, that was when I really felt like I belonged.
Okay. All right. So and so it's different for each of us, that part of it. That part of it, when it goes from here to here, that journey, that big long space between my head and my heart, and I start living the principles behind the steps, that I start to ease out of that uncomfortableness that I have, that I was never comfortable in my own skin. You are how old now when this happens?
Oh gosh, I was 28.
Okay.
When I finally graduated from seminary, I was 28, and moved back to Florida.
Okay. So let's go. 15 years ago, you were offered a position here, and we are in Cape Coral, Florida. Once again,
17 and a half years ago.
17 and a half years ago. I stand corrected. Once again, you're listening to Rated R for Recovery, which can be heard on podcastcafe.live.com and iTunes, Network, Facebook, and YouTube. And we'll be streaming live starting hopefully next week. Our guest right now is Jorge Acevedo, one of the pastors at Grace United Methodist Church. We're talking about his personal journey with his power, or with a power greater than himself, which he chooses to call Jesus Christ, which is my power as well. And we're up to the point where 17 years ago, what happened?
Well, 17 years ago, God and the bishop, in that order, asked me to come to a dying United Methodist Church down the street from where we are right now. And I was 36 years old.
How many members at that time did the church have?
We were running about 300 in worship when I came there. My first Sunday. There were 300 people there and 30 friends of mine from my church in Fort Lauderdale to wish me well.
Okay.
And things were so bad, they needed to wish me well. And
just to give an idea, how many members, active members of that church are there now?
Oh, I don't know. We average somewhere around 2,700 people.
2,700. Did you hear that?
Yeah.
From 300 to 2,700 people. And I'm not trying to say that's your doing.
No. You know better than that.
Well, I'm not that, but I don't want to make you feel uncomfortable.
I'm fine.
All right, good.
I'm okay.
All right.
No S on this chest.
Okay, so now the recovery part of Grace Church starts how? How does it start?
I'd been in another church where I had helped start Celebrate Recovery. I was one of the pastors, and so this was my first church to be the kind of person who was responsible or in charge of the church. So 1999, I put in the bulletin, the worship folder, if you're a friend of Bill W's and you want to start a Christ-centered, biblically based 12-step recovery program, then we would invite you to meet me in room 7. And there was 12 people that showed up. I plugged in a VHS tape about how to start a recovery ministry, a Christian recovery ministry. And half of the people in the room said it'll never work. And the other half said, think it will. And I said, let's meet 2 weeks later. And about 18 people showed up.
And what is Celebrate Recovery?
Celebrate Recovery is a Christ-centered, biblically based 12-step. It uses the steps of Alcoholics Anonymous. And we call Jesus Christ our higher power. It's recovery. And it allows people with hurts, habits, and hang-ups is kind of the language we use. It's kind of our byline, if you will. It allows people with hurts, habits, and hang-ups, which we say is everybody on the planet.
Right.
7 billion people have them. And so we tell everybody I tell everybody at our church that not everybody needs Celebrate Recovery, though I wish everybody would go. Everybody does need recovery from something. They need recovery from something. So we've been doing this now for 14 years, I guess.
Yeah, so you started with, what, 18 people? And
We started with 18 people, and now on any given week, if you kind of total up all of the recovery ministries happening at all of the churches, somewhere around 600 people or so are in the recovery ministries. We've had thousands of people.
And it
come
started in a church in California, is that correct?
through. Yeah,
Saddleback?
Saddleback Church, where Rick Warren is the pastor, had a guy in his church that was in the rooms of AA, and he was having this great experience in AA with sobriety, and then he was having this great experience in his church, and he thought to himself, he sat down one day and said, I wonder if these two worlds could mix. And so he pitched the idea to Rick Warren, and Rick Warren told him what we pastors love to tell people when they come to us with a great idea. You got the vision, you got the job.
Yep.
And he started it just with a handful of people, and now it's an international ministry that it's translated into bunches of languages. They take it all over the world.
And there are many churches here in this community now.
Yes.
That do. I had a question. Are they all Methodist?
No, it's just all across the board. All across the board. There are, I don't even know the number of churches. I mean, the Celebrate Recovery website tells you it's in the tens of thousands of churches
exactly it is.
That actually do this. And what we have found at Grace Church is that it really has, Celebrate Recovery really has set the kind of the culture of our church. And I think in some part it comes because their pastor is a drunk. And so yeah, my first Sunday there, John, you don't know this because you were still out lost in your craziness when I came here. But my first Sunday there, I stood up and we were doing communion. That weird thing we Christians do with bread and juice.
Yeah.
And I
Bread
held up
juice or bread juice?
Well, bread and juice. Yeah.
Okay.
And I held up the grape juice and I said, "This is the blood of Christ." And then I said, we use grape juice, not alcohol. So if you struggle with alcohol like I do, know that this is a safe place for you. And I could hear people, oh my God, our pastors are drunk. Right. And but I do believe that, that was kind of like a seed that was planted in our church.
Right.
And now, almost 18 years later, we have hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of people who are in some kind of recovery in the life of our church.
What role did you take initially in Celebrate Recovery?
In the early days, I pretty much led it with a partner, Tanya. And she and I sat down and dreamed about it. And I'd meet with her a couple of times a week. And we didn't know what we were doing. And our first week, I think we had about like 30 or 40 people there on a Friday night. And had pizza and salad and a really bad band. And, the speakers were okay because it would be Tanya one week and then me the next. And
Tanya the next
week. And then me and then Tanya. And then it's just grown. And now we do step studies on Tuesday nights, men and women step studies,
right.
A year long
right.
where they're going slowly through the steps. I like to say that's where the action happens. That's where people really, really get well. And
the band is fabulous.
And the band is kicking.
Yep.
I think we're going to hear from our leader here in a little bit.
We are.
So yeah.
Okay, so what are you doing right now? What is Jorge Acevedo's goals for right now, and then we're going to touch a little bit about what you actually right now you can touch a little bit about it. Okay. You've co-authored one book and you authored another book. Yeah. Tell us a little bit about that and where you're going.
Well, let me tell you what I'm doing right now.
Okay.
I'm in my second year-long men's step study.
Yeah.
We're doing a piece of curriculum called A Hunger for Healing. It's a 12-step step study with DVDs and workbooks, and we're on our fourth step right now. Huh? And I'm in there with a group of 6 or 7 guys from our church, and we're just going deep in it, and it's good stuff. Okay. It's really, really good stuff. So, I've been sober a long time, but I know that I could drink in 7.5 minutes, as long as it would take me to get to the gas station.
Right.
And so I still have to work on my recovery. I still have lots of hurts, habits, and hangups that God and I are working on. I'm a performance addict and I'm a perfectionist. Got a lot of other issues like that I'm working on.
A performance addict?
Performance addict, yeah. Meaning, I don't know how to rest much, but I'm getting really good at it.
I get it.
Like tomorrow's my day off.
And that's important.
Yeah.
Rest, exercise, eating right is all part of what happens when we...
Let's not go to the eating right part. Let's just skip over that, right?
Believe me, I weigh 200 pounds.
No.
When I came into recovery, I weighed 136 pounds.
But there was a reason for that.
Yeah, and had no teeth.
That's
I
right.
heard, well, there. I had no teeth either. But through the grace of a God that is just ever so loving, I don't live my life that way anymore.
Yeah.
What is the part of the book, Vital, that touches on recovery?
Yeah, well, our denomination asked me to write a book on vital congregations because our church is one of them, and how our churches can be vital. And I did a thing on 5 things that vital churches do. Churches are just like people; they behave in certain ways. Interestingly enough, John, I don't know if you know this, but 85% of the churches in America are dying, and our church has to be one of those 15% that are doing well. And so. Those 15% of churches act differently than the 85%. And just like people in recovery act differently than people who are not in recovery.
Right.
And so I did a book on that. And one of the things that churches that are doing well is they know that what's most important is not what happens inside, but what happens outside. And so our church lives by that mantra. We really care about what happens when you leave the doors. And so we do a lot about outreach, and a big part of that was talking about the recovery culture at Grace Church.
Right. All right, I'm going to ask you one more question
Okay.
before we let you go. And it is a question you asked the congregation, or Wes asked the congregation last week. Jorge Acevedo,
Yes.
what is your God-sized mission?
What's my God-sized mission? Yeah. My God-sized mission is that I want to be a dream releaser, helping release God's greatest dreams in people, and leaders particularly, and in churches, both in the United States and around the world. I have a hunger and a passion to be around the world.
Well, and you've done that for us tonight.
Well,
for
thank you.
Fletch and Joy.
Thank you.
You've done that
This is our little dream.
from the time I sat down on that couch in your office and I told you about this show.
Yep.
And you released that dream at that time.
Thank you, my friend.
And so instead of crying, I'll go to break here.
All right, and then I'll cry.
And then we'll both cry. You've been listening to You are listening to Rated R for Recovery each and every week, Thursday at Studio 7 Cafe and Coffee Company. Our guest for our first segment, once again, Jorge Acevedo, one of the pastors at Grace United Methodist Church in Cape Coral, Florida. And we'll be right back after this.
Thank you, George.
Have you been considering a kitchen renovation or bathroom remodeling? There's no one better to call than the professionals at Honey's Construction. Value, beauty, and functionality. Get the right design for your kitchen or bathroom and add significant value to your home. Call Honey's Construction today at 229-4934 for a free in-home consultation. Honey's Construction's purpose and mission is to fulfill dreams and to be grateful for the many blessings we enjoy each and every day. 229-4934. Get the taste of home while eating out. Gwendolyn's Cafe and Catering. Open daily for breakfast and lunch and located at 2400 First Street in downtown Fort Myers. Gwendolyn's Cafe and Catering specializes in homemade soups, salads, sandwiches, and desserts. And Gwendolyn's has been rated 5 stars by Urban Spoon and Yelp. Get the taste of home while dining out. Or let us bring the taste of home to your home with our free delivery. Gwendolyn's Cafe and Catering, 2400 First Street, downtown Fort Myers.
Every Friday night at 6:45 p.m., experience Celebrate Recovery at Grace Church at 13 Southeast 21st Place in Cape Coral. The purpose of Celebrate Recovery is to encourage fellowship and to celebrate God's healing power in our lives as we work our way along the road to recovery. By working through the 12 steps and 8 principles of Celebrate Recovery, we grow spiritually and we are freed from our hurts, habits, and hang-ups. Celebrate Recovery every Friday night at 6:45 p.m. at Grace Church, 13 Southeast 21st Place in Cape Coral.
Have you been charged with a crime? You could face serious penalties for conviction, and it is vitally important that you have skilled legal assistance on your side during this time. Call Brian L. Edwards, Esquire, Attorney at Law today. 888-512-6254. Results matter. With a track record of success, our methods are tried and true. Mistakes happen, but we can help. Brian L. Edwards, Esquire, Attorney at Law. Visit FortMyersCriminalLawFirm.com or call 888-512-6254.
That's going to leave a mark. But not if you bring your vehicle to Dehab Your Automotive Rehab, your one-stop shop for all auto body work and paint. No job too big or small. With over 25 years experience, Dehab can make your vehicle look like the accident never happened. Dehab Your Automotive Rehab is located at 2534 Highland Street, 1 block off Edison Avenue in Fort Myers. So if you have a scratch, ding, dent, or bent, call Dehab Your Automotive Rehab at 332-1813.
Bust a gut laughing at Off the Hook Comedy Club inside Captain Brian's Seafood and Raw Bar. For tickets, call 239-389-6900. That's 389-6900. Or visit offthehookcomedy.com. Off the Hook Comedy Club inside Captain Brian's Seafood and Raw Bar. Enjoy the best raw bar in Southwest Florida and a menu of delicious entrees like juicy prime rib and the best seafood, period. Located at 599 South Collier Boulevard, Suite 218 on Marco Island, across from the Hilton Hotel. Visit offthehookcomedy.com.
J&J Appliance Repair Inc. is a Christ-centered company of 3 years. We operate our company using God's golden rule. Treat others as you want to be treated. That is honestly, dependably, and as quickly as possible at a fair price. That's just what we do. With 30-plus years experience, we keep updated through continuing education. We repair all makes and models, as well as install dishwashers and hot water tanks. There's vent cleaning, which includes the dryer. We're family-owned and operated, insured, licensed, and service Lee County. Call 239-440-4452.
Feeling alone? Feeling lost? Feeling helpless? We're here to help.
You're listening to Rated R for Recovery. RatedRforRecovery.com is the website. Email us at info@ratedrforrecovery.com. Like us on the Facebook. Yeah. We broadcast each and every Thursday night in front of a live studio audience.
7 p.m.
As you can tell, I am not fibbing about that. We broadcast live from Studio 7 Cafe and Coffee Company on Del Prado Boulevard in Cape Coral, Florida. We can be heard in every country around the world. Isn't that amazing?
Yes.
I think I still can't get over it. We started at a 100,000-watt radio station in Estero, Florida, a year ago.
Yep.
January.
Yep.
And we have survived to this point, and now we have taken the show to another level, and that is what's called the future of radio, and that is podcast internet radio. You'll be able to hear the show on YouTube, Facebook, iTunes, podcastcafelive.com, and once again, the reason why you can hear it on podcastcafelive.com, along with other shows like Zito and Garrett and health shows, is because of Captain Brian at Captain Brian Off the Hook Comedy Club on Marco Island. He has loved this show from day one. He is going to provide us with world-famous comedians that are in recovery. At some point, once we get the kinks worked out of the show, we will be live streaming and we'll be able to take phone calls as well. Therefore, we have guests online such as famous people from the classic rock era, from the new rock era, from television and motion pictures who have also recovered. So we are looking forward to that, aren't we?
Very exciting.
Till then, you're stuck with us.
That's right.
And no,
But for today.
because you see, that's where you're wrong, because you'll be intermingling with those as the time comes. This is a feature. By the way, my name is Fletcher P. Henderson. You can call me Fletch, and my co-host is
Joy Thomas.
And we want to welcome you and thank you again for coming and seeing this unusual thing that we do here called Rated R for Recovery. We're doing a feature on Grace Church this week, possibly next week as well. And our first guest was Pastor Jorge Acevedo, who resides out of the main campus. We call it the Mothership in Cape Coral, Florida. And sitting with us right now is Sherry and Arlene. I'll let them use their last names if they like. Sherry is the pastor at the Fort Myers Shores campus. Is that what you say?
That's right. That's right.
And can last names are okay?
Probably not.
Probably not.
Oh, whatever. Okay, and Pastor Arlene is the head pastor at Grace United Methodist Church in the Central Campus, or the downtown Fort Myers campus.
Here's some love for Central. Yay.
Sounds like there's some competition going on in the audience.
The interesting thing about the campus that Pastor Arlene pastors is that she's in the trenches. That church is located in the. Don't look at it. Why are you making that face? There is.
Everybody's in the trenches.
Everybody's in the
Fletch.
trenches.
I
Come
used
on.
in that.
We
Well,
are
I'm talking
in the
about
trenches.
alcoholism, drug addiction, prostitution, crime.
That stuff is everywhere, isn't it?
It is.
Yes.
That stuff
Okay.
is
How come I
everywhere.
can't hear Arlene?
I don't know.
Okay. Anyway, so all right, but anyway, so Arlene, your journey began when?
From birth or recovery?
Well, for recovery.
Yeah.
Come
Okay.
on, yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
1985. I was born in 1958, and I got sober in 1985. So you do the math.
She's still younger than I am.
And got sober in a recovery program. Somebody was kind enough to visit me in a hospital when I had tried to overdose and kill myself at the ripe old age of 27 because I was very sure that life was completely over for me because I was an alcoholic and an addict, and I had done everything bad that there was to do, and there was nothing left for me at all.
Right.
And I thought at 27 my life was over. And obviously not, because here I am 28 years later and in recovery and doing some things that I would never have imagined at the age of 27 when I was laying in that hospital that I would ever be doing. So that's a word of hope that I have for young people. A lot of times young people feel like, you know, when they come in the program that they've already kind of ruined everything. You know, they've ruined everything,
Right.
and there's nothing else that can ever happen. And to bring them out of the ruination of their life.
Yeah, that was how I felt.
Absolutely, and people feel that way because they start, you know, adding up all the bad things that have happened and all the, you know, the rap sheet and the relationships and the baby daddy mamas and everything else, and you know, they start adding all that stuff up, and
it
there's
just looks
no
like a
and
big
there's no
zero.
hope. Yeah, and there's no hope, but that's not so. Obviously, we know that in recovery, that God can do anything, and He does. Not just that He can, but He also does.
And so God began working in your life.
Excuse me?
And so God began working in your life, like in 1985, and
Yes, God began working in my life in 85, but I didn't recognize Him as being Jesus. And I sort of thought of God kind of at the time as somebody who made the heaven and the earth and was in charge of things like photosynthesis, but maybe not like so much about me. You know, just about like
For the
the
big
main
stuff.
things.
Yeah.
Yeah, the big stuff. The big stuff, and the little stuff was kind of up to me. But luckily, God is very patient, and in time I began. It took about 8 or 10 years before I recognized Jesus as being the God that was working in my life all along.
Before we find God, we get sober.
It's crazy, isn't it?
Don't
God
we?
finds us.
How did you get sober?
God finds us.
I want to know how you got sober. You were in that hospital bed. What happened?
Yeah, what happened was somebody brought me to a program. I began working the steps of the program that I was brought to, and I thought that I was doing a pretty good job because I stopped drinking. Until somebody a few years later, about maybe a couple of years later, had mentioned to me that in the beginning when I stayed sober, those first few weeks or days or hours or minutes when I couldn't stay sober at all before, when I was staying sober, I didn't have the tools that I had now. I didn't have literature, and I didn't have mentors or sponsors. I didn't have steps. I didn't have any of that stuff, and yet I still stayed sober. And so how did that happen, since before I couldn't stay sober at all, and then suddenly I stayed sober? So I began to recognize God because of that. But before that, I really believed that I was doing it all.
Right,
I believed
look
that
what
I
I've-
was doing it all, and that I had suddenly, you know, found some way to do something that I couldn't do before. Crazy.
And so then through step work, it was sort of pointed out to you, and you were able to see.
I think God reveals to us what we need to know. I mean, I say it often that had had I been forced to bend my knee to Jesus when I got sober, I'd be dead today.
Right. He had
Because
to
I
bring
would
you
I would
along.
not have been able to accept that at all.
And not a lot of people are. And I
Right.
have a good friend who will remain nameless as well. She says if God scares you out of here, the drugs and the alcohol scare you right back in.
Right.
And that's so true.
But God is very loving. God will lead you wherever you need to go as long as you have a willingness to believe in Him in some way. He will. And this is funny because I asked a pastor before I became a pastor. I asked a pastor when it occurred to me that I had stayed sober without Jesus, and then, I'm going to Celebrate Recovery, and they're going, you need Jesus. And I'm like, okay, wait a minute, I stayed sober before Jesus. What's the deal with that? Does anybody ever wonder that?
Yeah,
It's like if you need Jesus and like you stayed sober without Jesus, how does that work? And this pastor said, so did you pray, during that time? And I'm like, oh, yeah. I used to pray all the time. Who'd you pray to? I said, I don't know, Mother, Father, Sister, God. I don't know, the moon, the stars, all kinds of strange things, candles, whatever. I prayed to all kinds of things. And he looked at me and he said, don't you think that God knows who He is when you pray? Don't you think God knows who He is and is answering whether you know who He is or not? And that made perfect sense to me. And that made me realize prevenient grace had been working in my life all along.
They say, my higher power is we share a common higher power. Most people in this room, I attend Celebrate Recovery as well as other programs, and when the original 12-step program started in 1930 whatever, they had an opening to how they started their meetings. And they said the simple purpose of this process is to show what may be done to enlist the aid of a power greater than ourselves, regardless of what our individual conception of that power may be, and to rely all we do, not part of what I do, but all I do on that power. And that, I guess, is the crust. Is it crux or crust? Crux.
It's not a crust. Crust is on a pie.
Yeah.
Flesh.
Well, it's a biscuit. They say the crust of the biscuit. So I always thought.
Crust is on the edge.
Yeah.
No.
All right. Okay. So that's the crust part of it, and that's the whole deal.
It's the meat and potatoes.
It is the meat and potatoes, absolutely. Now, sitting next to Arlene is Sherry, and Sherry, you are the lead pastor at what church?
Shores campus.
Of what?
Grace Church.
And the Shores campus. Now, you're being heard. Now, if a service person overseas is listening to the show, talk about the Shores campus. Wait, they don't know what that is. Where is that?
Well, at the Shores campus, a lot of folks drive jacked up pick-em-ups. Yeah.
But it's in the state of Florida.
It is in the state of Florida, and we're kind of in a rural area.
Okay.
It's a great place to be.
Okay. More specifically, it's in the eastern part of Lee County.
Eastern Lee County. That's
All right. And your journey started in recovery. I know not when you were born, but when you started in recovery. How did this come about for you?
My story is really one of pain and loss. By the time I was 21, I had already lost a husband. I had lost a home. I had lost my daughter due to alcoholism. I would have told you that I loved my daughter and my family more than anything in the world, but my behavior really proved otherwise.
Right.
And I came to a point in time where I couldn't take another loss, and I didn't see that alcohol was behind it. I pointed the finger at everyone and everything in my life. It was all them because they didn't understand me, and I'd never gotten a chance, and it was just all everyone else's fault. And this is totally crazy, but I was so lonely. I had been kicked out of bars. My family had asked me not to come around, and I was so lonely that I thought I would go to an anonymous meeting because I would find people like me who knew how to drink. I had no idea that they were trying to stay sober.
Really?
It's true.
Really?
Wow.
It's true. It's absolutely true. I walked into
Hold
this
on,
meeting
wait a minute. Let's just
thinking
back
I'm going
up
to
a
find
bit.
some pals.
You went to one of the A's thinking that they all drank? Seriously?
How to drink responsibly.
I didn't know.
Okay.
I was just, I needed some pals, and that's where I went to find some. And here was the thing.
What did you find?
Here, I found welcome. And they were happy to see me, and they invited me to come back the next day. And I got to tell you, it had been a long time
Right.
since anybody was happy to see me and anybody invited me anywhere.
Were you sober when you walked in?
I was.
Okay.
I was.
How'd you do that?
Well, the day before, I had gone to a doctor and with a host of complaints, and he said, there is something wrong with you, and I think you know what it is. And I did not drink the day that I went to that meeting. That was December 7th, 1978. I really believe, I know God was at work, because it's just too comical how it all happened. And I stayed sober by association because I have to say it again. I say this all the time. The welcome is what kept me coming back. And then when I kept coming back, I realized, oh gosh, I'm one of these people.
Did you stay sober from that first meeting?
I did.
You did? Wow.
Yeah.
That's great. And I heard a gasp from the audience, too, when I said, were you sober when you went to your first meeting? Because a lot of us don't comprehend, I call them earthlings, the people that are not like me, that are like you, or like you, or like you, or like you, that are chronically addicted to drugs and alcohol, that what a miracle it is to be able to put it down for
Well,
any
let me
period
tell
of
you,
time.
I'm addicted to all kinds of stuff.
I've heard.
I think I'm a substance abuser because I found out that I had all kinds of areas in my life that I needed recovery in, not just alcohol, marijuana, relationships. I was bulimic. I had a host of
Right.
of issues that I needed recovery from, and it's taken years and years and years to find it.
Now, Arlene, how did you go from your first 12-step meeting to becoming a pastor?
Wow.
How does that? Where does that journey start?
Yeah, where does that journey start? You know, people still come to the church who've known me, even in my early recovery when, anybody who knows me knows I'm still sort of out of my mind, but at least, I do it
But in a good way.
like in a
Oh, yeah.
citizen way,
Sorta.
like kind of, what do you mean? But, people come to church just to see if it's true. It's like, really? No kidding? I'm like, yeah, I know. Nobody's more shocked than I. It was wild. I began to go to church. My first disease wasn't alcoholism and drug addiction. It was codependency. I didn't know that.
How did that manifest itself?
Well, as I was growing up, I had a very, very dysfunctional childhood. My mom was bipolar in a bad way, and my dad was a drinking man, and we had some little brothers and sisters hanging around, and so I became the caretaker for all the children. And at the first possible instant that I could, I got out of there and started just taking care of everybody else instead. I'd collect stray boys and hey,
Were they in abundance?
hey, they were in abundance, especially the places that I was hanging out.
All right.
And literally, absolutely, Sherry. Oh boy. And so codependency, drinking wasn't my problem. Drinking was my answer. I mean,
Right.
drinking was my solution. Drinking worked. Drinking and drugs always worked to get me out of the pain of really my codependency issues is what it was. And so how I came to be a pastor, believe it or not, I am getting back to that question. it kind of going around the block, but everybody gets that.
Sure.
Thank you.
Yeah.
But
No
sure,
problem.
Fletch says, yeah, why not?
Yeah.
And so as I began to recognize my codependency issues, that's when I started going to church.
You're sober now. Are you sober?
I'm sober. I started going to church a few years after I got sober, and Jesus came and spoke to me in my dining room, and he spoke to me about my codependency.
Really?
Yes,
How did he do that?
Absolutely. I was crying over another marriage gone bad. And he said, I will be your lover, and I will be your brother, and I will be your protector, and I will always be there for you. I will be everything that you need, and you will never have to have a fear of abandonment, and you will never have to be alone. Again, I will be with you through everything. How does that sound to you? And I said, sign me up. Sign me up. And it was from there that the door was open, that God started speaking to me in different ways when I was at church.
Right.
And one of those ways that he spoke to me was, I want you to be a pastor. And I laughed at him. I showed him my resume. It's like, come on, that can't happen. And of course, God can do anything. And to make a long story short, those doors began to open.
Sure.
With a willingness to step through them. So God will work in your life in a process. And many times where you start is not where you know you're going to end up. Because had somebody said to me, is this what you want? When I first got sober, I would have gone out and drank because I would not have wanted it.
Exactly. We can't always see what it is that he has in store for us.
You have to walk through it. You have to travel through it.
You're listening to Rated R for Recovery. You can find us on the website at ratedrforrecovery.com. Email us at info@ratedrforrecovery.com. And like us on the Facebook. We have a Facebook page. That's the way you're going to be able to hear the show for a few weeks, as opposed to hearing it live, which will happen. And you'll be able to hear it on YouTube, Facebook, iTunes, and podcastcafelive.com, thanks to Captain Brian at Captain Brian's Off the Hook Comedy Club. When I came to my very first Celebrate Recovery meeting, it was October of 2008. At that time, you were on staff at the mothership of Grace Church, at the main campus of Grace Church.
Who's you?
Oh, I'm sorry. Yes, and very good. It's like we're television, and we're not. Sherry, you were on staff there. You were very active in Celebrate Recovery. Arlene, at that time, October of 2008, where were you?
I think I was still on staff at Grace Church.
You were?
But I wasn't yet over at the central campus,
right.
I don't believe.
The church had not taken that campus
right.
over yet.
Right.
I can tell you that right now. You are now, Sherry, go back to you. What brought you from where you were at that point in your recovery and involved with Celebrate Recovery to what you are now as a head pastor of your own church?
Well, I'll tell you, the reason I came to Celebrate Recovery was because I was invited by my dear friend Tanya. She said, you really need to come and see what we're doing here. And I thought that in the recovery program that I was in, that I pretty much, I'd been doing it for a while. I wasn't sure that there was anything I could learn.
Had everything you needed?
Pretty much. Mm-hmm. And so I started going to Celebrate Recovery, and Celebrate Recovery opened doors to areas of recovery that I didn't even know I needed. And it made a major difference in my life and in my walk.
Okay.
And when I say my walk, I mean my walk with God, who revealed himself to me through Jesus Christ.
Right.
I had started praying a long time ago, God, reveal yourself to me. When I didn't know him, and when, quite frankly, I didn't really care about him and had no interest in him, because somebody told me to pray that prayer, I prayed it. And God heard that prayer. And at first he revealed himself to me in nature and just how beautiful creation is. And then I got to know him in a deeper way as I felt this companionship with him. And then one day I came to the realization it actually hit me like a thunderbolt that, oh my gosh, that stuff I had learned when I went to Christian school was true. It was actually true. So I got called into the ministry almost immediately after I became a Christian, but I need to tell you that I ran from that call. I ran and I ran and I ran for 25 years. And I went to church faithfully. I even worked for the church.
Right.
But I did not...
That's it.
Yeah, that was it. I was like, Lord, you must not know me that well. I can't be a pastor. And when I came to one of my pastors, Pastor Wes, and told him, I just think I have wasted my life because I believe God called me to be a pastor, and I didn't do it. And when I get to heaven, he's going to say, well, you did okay, but what I really wanted you to do was be a pastor. And so he said, well, you know what? We can walk you through the process.
Right.
And Arlene went before me in this process. She was a great big help. And I never expected for the doors to open for me that did. God obviously had a plan, and I'm thrilled to be walking with him one day at a time.
I assume that that you all share a like-minded message on Sundays at service, right? You meet with, I always hear the leadership team,
Yeah, the
or the
teaching
team
Teaching
meet
team
and
from
discover
all
this.
the sites
Yeah.
and
So
campuses
I will
of Grace.
ask you the same question as I asked George before we departed with him. Arlene, what is your God-sized mission?
My God-sized mission is to have a big impact on people's spiritual and emotional growth, including pastors and churches.
Sherry, your God-sized mission.
My God-sized mission is to enable people to walk in their giftedness and also to take the message of Jesus Christ all around the world.
Right.
I've been able to go on mission trips and going to Nicaragua in a few months and into India in November.
You both have been on mission trips.
Right, we're both going to Nicaragua
Yeah, that's
together.
right.
Yes.
Yeah. Oh my gosh! You know what?
What? Go ahead.
What? This is so exciting.
This is
It's
very exciting.
Tell us.
Pastor Arlene and I are.
What are we doing?
Tell me,
We
please.
are coaching a group of Nicaraguan pastors to start a Celebrate Recovery.
That's right, we are.
Really?
Absolutely,
That's
yes.
amazing.
That's huge.
Yes.
It is.
That's
Yes.
huge.
It
So
is.
that could be a whole show in itself. That's great. That's great. So you've been there before, both of you.
Yes.
And you saw the need for for some sort of recovery program.
Yes.
Right,
Wow.
and they agree that they need it, and so
yeah.
we're trying to walk them through it, help them through that.
Okay. Part of Celebrate Recovery, what they do at Celebrate Recovery, or what we do, since I am a part of it, have been for a couple of years now, is that each Celebrate Recovery starts off the same way. And that's with praise and worship. Then it is a lesson on one of the steps of recovery, or a testimony, a personal testimony about what a person was like, what happened to them, and what they're like today through working the steps and the program of Celebrate Recovery. And then you break up into small groups. Men stay with men, women stay with women, and they break up into groups such as what Arlene said about codependency, drugs and alcohol, wherever your hurt habit or hang-up is. Each week at the main campus of Celebrate Recovery, it starts, like I said, with praise and worship. And we have as our musical guest today, who's going to perform for us right now, Scott McDonald. Scott is the leader of the praise team for the main campus of Celebrate Recovery. So without further ado, this is Scott.
All right.
Well, my name is Scott, and I'm a Christian in recovery from alcohol and drugs. You know what to do, I can see that. I'm going to sing a song that I wrote in a time where I felt like God's grace had absolutely just run out on me. And it was long after I got sober. But and I found myself asking the question, all right, so right now here I am, and I don't feel very holy, and I don't feel very Christian. You know, what do I have to do to snap out of this? And God said, well, being a Christian, I got some good news for you. There's not a thing you can ever do it's all done. If there's a way from where you are now to being closer to me, I made it. So God's helped me through that with that message, and I've called this song "You Made a Way." Walking away, never having the words to say to you, but knowing the truth only makes it that much harder. I need you here, need your spirit inside to make things clear. Holy Spirit, stay with me. Come once again and set me free. You made a way, you made a way, you made a way, way for me to say, come make a way, come make a way, come make a way to feel you here today. Do you grow tired of my running back and forth, asking for guidance from you, then throwing it back in your face? Remind me again how it feels to know you love me. Come free me again from myself and this mess I'm in. You made a way, you made a way, you made a way, way for me to say, come make a way, come make a way, come make a way to feel you here today. You are my joy, you are my praise. You give me peace, you give me grace. It gives me hope to find you in this place. Come make a way, come make a way, come make a way to feel you here today.
Let's have a nice round of applause for Scott. Great job, Scott. Ladies and gentlemen, you're listening to Rated R for Recovery, ratedrforrecovery.com. Email us at info@ratedrforrecovery.com. And as you like to hear, like us on the Facebook. And just type in Rated R for Recovery. We need all the likes and shares we can get. We'll be right back after this short break.
Homes. Have you been considering a kitchen renovation or bathroom remodeling? There's no one better to call than the professionals at Honey's Construction. Value, beauty, and functionality. Get the right design for your kitchen or bathroom and add significant value to your home. Call Honey's Construction today at 229-4934 for a free in-home consultation. Honey's Construction's purpose and mission is to fulfill dreams and to be grateful for the many blessings we enjoy each and every day. 229-4934. Get the taste of home while eating out. Gwendolyn's Cafe and Catering. Open daily for breakfast and lunch and located at 2400 First Street in downtown Fort Myers. Gwendolyn's Cafe and Catering specializes in homemade soups, salads, sandwiches, and desserts. And Gwendolyn's has been rated 5 stars by Urban Spoon and Yelp. Get the taste of home while dining out. Or let us bring the taste of home to your home with our free delivery. Gwendolyn's Cafe and Catering, 2400 First Street, downtown Fort Myers.
Every Friday night at 6:45 p.m., experience Celebrate Recovery at Grace Church at 13 Southeast 21st Place in Cape Coral. The purpose of Celebrate Recovery is to encourage fellowship and to celebrate God's healing power in our lives as we work our way along the road to recovery. By working through the 12 steps and 8 principles of Celebrate Recovery, we grow spiritually and we are freed from our hurts, habits, and hang-ups. Celebrate Recovery every Friday night at 6:45 p.m. at Grace Church, 13 Southeast 21st Place in Cape Coral.
Have you been charged with a crime? You could face serious penalties for conviction, and it is vitally important that you have skilled legal assistance on your side during this time. Call Brian L. Edwards, Esquire, Attorney at Law today. 888-512-6254. Results matter. With a track record of success, our methods are tried and true. Mistakes happen, but we can help. Brian L. Edwards, Esquire, Attorney at Law. Visit FortMyersCriminalLawFirm.com or call 888-512-6254.
That's going to leave a mark. But not if you bring your vehicle to DHAB, your automotive rehab. Your one-stop shop for all auto body work and paint. No job too big or small. With over 25 years experience, DHAB can make your vehicle look like the accident never happened. DHAB, your automotive rehab, is located at 2534 Highland Street, 1 block off Edison Avenue in Fort Myers. So if you have a scratch, ding, dent, or bent, call DHAB, your automotive rehab at 332-1813.
Bust a gut laughing at Off the Hook Comedy Club inside Captain Brian's Seafood and Raw Bar. For tickets, call 239-389-6900. That's 389-6900. Or visit offthehookcomedy.com. Off the Hook Comedy Club inside Captain Brian's Seafood and Raw Bar. Enjoy the best raw bar in Southwest Florida and a menu of delicious entrees like juicy prime rib and the best seafood, period. Located at 599 South Collier Boulevard, Suite 218 on Marco Island, across from the Hilton Hotel. Visit offthehookcomedy.com.
J&J Appliance Repair, Inc. is a Christ-centered company of 3 years. We operate our company using God's golden rule. Treat others as you want to be treated. That is honestly, dependably, and as quickly as possible at a fair price. That's just what we do. With 30-plus years experience, we keep updated through continuing education. We repair all makes and models, as well as install dishwashers and hot water tanks. There's vent cleaning, which includes the dryer. We're family-owned and operated, insured, licensed, and service Lee County. Call 239-440-4452.
Feeling alone? Feeling lost? Feeling helpless? We're here to help.
Now, our guest right now is Greg. Greg, do you want to use your last name?
I'll just use my first name.
Okay. Tell us what your title is.
Well, I don't know. Let me get my business card out. It says Director of Recovery Ministries at Grace Church.
All right, and you've held that position since when?
About 2.5 years now.
When you took over, you had a large shoes to fill. The thing was up and running. There was a very popular man that came before you.
Absolutely.
Did you feel intimidated by that at all?
Absolutely, I sure did.
Okay, and you were connected to that man for many years as well.
He was my sponsor for 10 years.
Right. So walk us through the process of taking over at that point and how that affected you and how you dealt with that and how you proceeded to grow this ministry or help. Let's see, how do I put it the right way? Because no human power can relieve us. So we are strictly a vessel of a power greater than ourselves. Let that power flow through us and see how we can best serve him and our fellow man and women. So go ahead.
Well, I have the blessing of working with George and Wes and Arlene and Sherry and learned a lot from them over the last 12 years. And Wes and George, we're very team-oriented at Grace Church.
Right.
And that was the easiest part right there. All I had to do was start developing teams, and everything kind of took care of itself from there.
Right. That's the philosophy, is to not try to do everything myself, but to break it up and to put different people in place where their talents lie the best.
Yes, sir.
Okay. So
hi, Joy. Good to see you again.
Hi, Greg. It's nice to see you too. So I'm really interested in the personal aspect of your own personal journey and how you found your way to God, how you found your way to Jesus, and then.
That's funny. We all have a story. Everybody has a story, and mine is my story. But I had my first drunk at a very young age. I was at a wedding reception. I drank alcohol. I loved the way it made me feel, and I went to any length to get more of it. And I didn't know it at the time, but I was exhibiting alcoholic behavior. Mm-hmm. And that's how I lived my life for the next 28 years. But at that time, I was only 9 years old, so I didn't really quite understand that. And like I said, for the next 28 years...
Hold up. You were 9 years old when you got drunk at a wedding?
Yes, sir.
Nice.
There are some 9-year-olds in
I guess so.
recovery.
Yeah.
Not a lot, but there are some.
But no, he said he drank for 28 years. And
well, it wasn't him. Then.
Oh. All right, so go ahead. I didn't mean to interrupt. Yes, I did. Go ahead.
I led my life of an alcoholic. My father, his whole family was an alcoholic, so I believe I inherited this disease. And I didn't know how to live with it, so I just accepted it and lived that way. And in April of 2000, I was arrested as I was coming out of a liquor... Well, actually, I was coming out of a liquor store, my third half-gallon of whiskey for the day. I put that bottle on the car seat, and I heard a voice say, "You can't keep doing this." And I'd never been to church with my family, ever. Wow. And I just said the first sincere 3-word prayer of my life. I said, "God, help me." 45 minutes later, I was arrested, and that ended a lousy marriage, 2 lost homes, 4 lost well-paying corporate jobs. I wrecked 16 automobiles.
And what year was this?
2000 when I got sober.
Okay, so 8 tracks have been destroyed, so that voice wasn't your 8-track playing.
That's right.
Okay, all right. So go ahead.
But at that day, they left me in there to work it out. And I went through some very bad withdrawals, hallucinations, DTs. Wow. And on the 1 week later, I had my first coherent day. And I was sitting in a jail cell, and an older guy with white hair walked up and looked in and said, "How you doing?" And I said, "Well, I'm in here and you're out there. Why don't you figure it out?" And he just smiled and he said, "Would you like to talk about it?" And I shared my story to myself and to him for the very first time. And I walked my way through my life and saw the destruction alcohol had caused. And he said, "You know, you don't have to feel this way anymore." I said, "I don't?" He said, "No. You can give it all to Jesus right now." And I said, "Oh, no, another one of them." But then I looked around in that jail cell and looked at the mess I'd made in my life, and I said, either God's going to take my life and end it, or he's going to put some order into it. So I accepted Jesus as my personal Savior on April 14th of 2000, and made a decision that when I got out, a new man was going out of jail. And that was 16 months later that I got out. But
really,
that's my story.
All right, so that white man with the white beard was real.
Yes, I called him Brother K.
Okay, all right, okay. And you know, when we go into jail, you must have felt a lot of pain, because I don't tell you from personal experience, they don't put you on a suicide watch just out of a whim. They interview you, and you have to say that you are thinking about hurting yourself. And then they put you, they strip you down completely naked, and they put you in this thing that looks like a mattress. How do I know that? Because that's been my experience. Anyway, we don't need to be talking about me right now. So you get to this point, and where does it go from here?
Well, my sister had been writing to me, and she had been telling me about this. She moved to Florida in 91. My mother moved down in 88, and she was telling me about this Methodist church, you know, with this Puerto Rican pastor who was in recovery. And I said, man, that sounds like a messed up place.
What kind of craziness is this?
I decided when I got out I had to change everything. So I moved down here with a suitcase, a duffel bag, and no driver's license. And got off the Greyhound bus, and my first full day in Cape Coral, she took me to Celebrate Recovery. Now, I hadn't had anything to do with the church in my entire life, and so I just walked gently when I went in there. But by the end of the night, I said, sign me up. I want to be part of this. This is really cool. Because when I was incarcerated, I was reading the Bible, and I was reading the big book of Alcoholics Anonymous. And I saw how they went together. And I'd already created this little thing in my mind, my wonderful mind, a program like Celebrate Recovery. So I had a resentment when I walked in because they had stole
They
my
stole
idea.
your idea.
Yeah. Yeah. But I loved it. I was
a
willing
good
to be a
alcoholic.
part of it.
Yeah.
And Tanya was leader then, and she was very quick to put me to work and gave me my first responsibility to make coffee.
Right.
I did that for a year and a half.
Was this? I might have missed something. Was this your first attempt at recovery, or did you try another 12-step program first?
I was introduced to Alcoholics Anonymous in 1988 at the urging of the judge. And I'll tell you how it worked out for me. He sent me to a counselor, and she had me go to an AA meeting. She said, I want you to go to 2 AA meetings a week, and I want you to bring me 2 stories back. So I said, well, I don't even know where these are, what they are. So she told me where the first one was, and I showed up, and I thought I was at the wrong place because there's a bunch of guys hugging each other. And they said, welcome. And I said, I think I'm in the wrong place. They said, nah, you're in the right place. Glad you're here. And so I heard about 16 people share on what alcohol had done to them in their lives. And they got to me to share, and they said, anything you want to say? I said, yeah, I don't know what the hell I'm doing in here. I'm like, I'm nothing like you guys. I still got a big house. I got 2 cars, big job. And I said, I don't have anything to do with y'all. And they just said, keep coming back. And I said, did you not hear me? And so I got in my car, and I said, I've got to go to 2 of these a week. And then I realized she needed 2 stories. So I sat there and started taking notes on what everybody said. And that bought me 8 weeks of meetings right there.
Interesting. So now you're involved with Celebrate Recovery. Your sobriety date is?
April 7th, 2000.
Okay. So you took over when as the, I don't know.
October of 2011.
And tell us what Celebrate Recovery has done for you from the beginning to where you are now.
Celebrate Recovery is a Christ-centered 12-step recovery program. And it brought me a lot closer to Christ. But there's a lot of components to recovery. And Celebrate Recovery has them all. And if you use them all, they'll work in any room, any recovery rooms. And, I got a sponsor. I started working the steps. I went to meetings. I read the literature. And I got involved in service. And I'm still very active in AA because they did save my life.
Great.
Yeah.
Never leave. That's one of the things that I've noticed that I'm not saying I judge, but I guess I do judge. And the pastors at Grace Church say, don't judge, but somehow I do judge. And I don't leave the fellowships that I started with, and I have to give back to what was so freely given to me. And,
absolutely.
And so in closing, real quickly, you're doing an awesome job. You're a great leader, a great friend, and also a inspiration for everybody that comes through the door. And that's mainly because you're always there. You've always got a smile on your face.
Smile on his face.
He always has his hand out saying, how can I help? And like we talked with George and Sherry and Arlene, we asked the same question, is what is your God-sized mission?
Well, first of all, my passion is to carry a message of hope to the hopeless. And I'll do that in whatever venue I'm in.
Right.
And I've been in jails, I've been in prisons, and I've done a lot of things. But today my God-sized vision, and we were talking about this in one of our meetings about 4 weeks ago. And they said if buildings and people and money were not an issue, where would you like to see your ministry go? And my dream is I'd like to see Celebrate Recovery within 20 miles of where we're sitting 7 days a week. And lo and behold...
So there's a meeting every night. You mean so there's some
I would like
place to go every night?
Recovery every night of the week.
Because I drank and did drugs every night, I should go to a meeting every day and every night, and there's not... Okay. That is wonderful.
Lo and behold, 2 weeks later, we had a kickoff in a church south of us.
We did.
That opened up their very first Celebrate Recovery.
We did. Absolutely.
Under the leadership of my buddy Ken.
Right there. And Ken is in our studio audience tonight. We'll
Hi, Ken. I didn't see you there.
Ken is also a great inspiration in my life as God speaks to him and he helps me. Well, he told me I helped him today, but I don't get that, but I guess I did. So anyway, Greg, thanks for coming. Is that it? Did I have it wrong? Was it a God-sized vision and not a God-sized mission? Was it? Doesn't matter.
It's all the same.
As long as the pastors went.
Fletch, thanks for having me. Joey, good seeing you again.
Thank you very much. And right now, Greg, thanks for being here. Give Greg a nice round of applause. And before we say goodnight, we're going to let Scott do, or have Scott do one more song for us. Scott?
We're going to sing one more song about two very, very important things in recovery. Understanding powerlessness and that we're broken, and giving our life over to Christ. I am broken at your feet, like an alabaster jar. Every piece of who I am laid before your majesty, and I will bow my life at your feet, at your feet. My lips, so lost for words, will kiss your feet, kiss your feet. Oh, the gravity of you draws my soul unto its knees. I will never be the same. I am lost and found in you, and I will bow my life at your feet, at your feet. My lips, so lost for words, will kiss your feet, kiss your feet. Bow my life at your feet, at your feet. My lips, so lost for words, will kiss your feet, kiss your feet. I will bow my life at your feet, at your feet. My lips, so lost for words, will kiss your feet, kiss your feet.
Round of applause for Scott. At this time, ladies and gentlemen, we'd like to have a nice round of applause for our guests, Pastor George, Pastor Sherry, Pastor Arlene, Greg, and Scott. Please have a nice round of applause for them. Please feel free to join us and make this part of your weekly routine every Thursday night here at Studio 7 Cafe and Coffee Company as we broadcast live. In a few weeks, we'll be live streaming. We'll be able to take live phone calls. Next week, please join us as our guests will be a local sober living house and some of their residents, and then a group of men and women call themselves Divine Appointment. And they are a group of people that lived on the street and were hardcore drug dealers, drug users, and that have turned themselves around by no righteous deed of their own, I'm sure. Ladies and gentlemen, once again, from the bottom of my heart, thank you very much for joining us. You've been listening to Rated R for Recovery. The website is ratedrforrecovery.com. Email us with your questions or comments at info@ratedrforrecovery.com. The show can be heard on YouTube, Facebook, iTunes, and thanks to Captain Brian at Off the Hook Comedy Club on Marco Island, podcastcafelive.com. Anything you want to say before we go?
And trust God, clean house, help others.
Amen. Stay sober, my friends. Good night.